this campaign is really about returning power to the people of the state of Missouri. And getting the office of the Attorney General is so important because that person is supposed to be our lawyer. The lawyer for the people of the state of Missouri. Imagine that. I mean, right now we have this guy in office. I don't know if you all paid attention. His name is Andrew Bailey. You might have heard of him. God. What a litany of people we've gone through here. So I worked there. I was an assistant attorney general when, the attorney general's office used to work. And that's been a while. Chris Koster was the attorney general back then. Don't know if you remember him. He ran for governor after that. Yeah, he did a great job. Before him, we had Jay Nixon. And when we had these guys, the idea behind that office was to protect the people of Missouri, to go after scammers, to protect our drinking water, to make sure that our government worked for us. And then we got Josh Hawley. And they figured out, wait, how do I make government work for me? And that's what he did. So he immediately started running for Senate. And now he's a U.S. Senator, hopefully not much longer. Right? Yeah, that's the idea here. Yeah, absolutely. Man, that guy, he violated, I don't know if you all saw this, but he's violated the Sunshine Law. And the Sunshine Law is a really big focus of my litigation. The Sunshine Law allows you and I to see what our government is doing with our money. Go to public meetings, participate in our government, all of these things. And I've litigated actually the landmark Sunshine Law case in Missouri. It's called Gross v. Parson. I am the gross guy on that one. I argue that all the way up to Missouri Supreme Court against some of my former supervisors actually at the Attorney General's office, and won a unanimous decision protecting our right to see public records and our ability to do that without them charging us an arm and a leg for us to see what belongs to us already. It was a big case. Yes, it was. As Attorney General, I will make sure our government's working for us. I will start a public corruption unit at the Attorney General's office to make sure your taxpayer dollars go exactly where they are supposed to. We will work with other agencies to make sure that you have good government in Missouri, not just government for individuals who want to run for some other office. It's very important. As Attorney General, I will start Missouri's first fully staffed civil rights division in the history of our state. Yeah, I agree. I think it's an important one. Most other states have one, and it's not just Democratic states. Oklahoma has a civil rights division. So I think Missouri should have one too. It'll be even better than Oklahoma, don't worry. As Attorney General, I will bring back the Environmental and Conservation Division that Jay Nixon started, that Josh Hawley got rid of, to protect our land, our air, and especially our drinking water right now. We need an Attorney General who will make sure that our grandkids can drink the water in the state of Missouri. That's what we need. There's so much that office can and should be doing for us. Does anybody here know? And some of you might, because you've been to some of my talks before. So let's see if you remember. Quiz time, right? What's the number one complaint every year by far that comes to the Attorney General's office? Scam calls. Did you know that Missouri started the do not call list? We invented it here. Jay Nixon was the first Attorney General to enforce it. You wouldn't know today, given how many calls we get. Well, as Attorney General, I will go after scammers. I will get our Consumer Protection Division working for us again. And I will start the Missouri Attorney General app, as long as that acronym isn't taken by a former president. And that app will allow you, as it's happening, to actually send the evidence directly to the office, help preserve the evidence so it's not getting lost, help us streamline those prosecutions, and warn you about scams in your area so that you can be a part of your government. Because here's the thing. Right now, most people I talk to have no idea who our Attorney General is. They don't. And I'm sure a lot of you, if you start asking around, folks are like, I don't know who that guy is. I don't even really know what the Attorney General does. And if you've ever had to hire a lawyer and you don't know the name of your lawyer or what your lawyer is doing, that's probably a red flag. Probably. You shouldn't see your Attorney General every 4 years. You should see your Attorney General all the time. You should be able to have input into what the Attorney General's office is doing for you with your money. Your Attorney General shouldn't be wasting it on stupid crap lawsuits so he can get on TV. The office is supposed to be an office to serve us, not a TV studio for this guy to run for the next office. And we will get the Attorney General's office working for you again. That's what this election is about. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do. So there's a lot, look, there's a lot that's going on this year. I'm really excited about what we have built as a campaign. We have, thanks to so many of you who have supported this campaign already, I get to give you a little bit of a report. We have the most staff organizing around the state of Missouri right now. We have phone banks right now. We have text banks. We have canvases with candidates all over the state right now. This campaign has more voter contacts than any other campaign in Missouri by hundreds of thousands, including the ballot initiatives right now that are doing great work. That's what we built right now in Missouri for a campaign for Attorney General. We can get this done. And when folks look historically at Missouri, and you look at what happened before in the 1960s, when there was a young guy running for Attorney General, and the whole state was one party, and he said there's a lot of corruption because one party is ruling everything. We need to change. We need new leaders. That guy won. His name was Jack Danforth. He was the only one, the only Republican who flipped in office that year. Well, you know what? I think we're going to do it again, just the opposite way. So let's go get it done. Let's go get it done. Well, so I'd be happy to take any questions. I know some of you have seen, and I've gotten some input on this, but Amendment 3. There was a very big legal fight about that. We put out some, I actually did, about, hey, here's what I think is going to happen, and here's why. I got to talk to their legal team quite a bit about what was going on to offer some support, and was very excited to see the Supreme Court entirely agree with me. That doesn't happen every day, but it was very exciting to see that. Yeah, it's, look, they are going to fight tooth and nail on this issue. And what the fight was just about was not about whether abortion is going to be legalized in Missouri, whether we were going to end this extreme ban that, by the way, even Donald Trump disagrees with. That's how extreme it is. Okay? That's not what this was about. The question was, do the people of Missouri have a right to access the ballot and put initiatives on the ballot? Because if the Secretary of State could come in the day before the deadline and say, oh, well, I don't like it, too bad for you, there's no way for you to challenge that, then we lose our right to vote. That's what the Supreme Court argument was about. And all of those folks that were opposing it were saying the people of Missouri should not have a voice in government because we know better than you. Well, you know what? I think we know a whole lot better than them. Whole lot. So Amendment 3 is a very big battle. There's several other amendments on the ballot too. But, you know, there's a lot that's going on here in Missouri. There's a lot that's going the right way. So very excited for it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you all have some. What's going on in the legislature? How is the other, you know, everything working out there? What my dog's favorite color is? Do we still have eyes on her somewhere? Hunter, you're in charge, okay, buddy? You know, Hunter also helps with a rescue here. Rescue 1, right? That's what it's called? Yeah, here in Springfield. So he's doing great. Yeah, doing great work. Yeah, I should have said it because she'll get mad at me on the way home. We're going to end some damn puppy mills here in Missouri, too. I mean, come on. Something else we voted on that they said they know better than us. Absolutely wild. Yeah, there's a lot that we can do here in Missouri, and we'll do a whole lot from the Attorney General's office. So, any questions? Are there any questions out there?
Have they got
Yeah.
the wording for the Amendment 3 set?
Yeah, great question.
Yes is not a no, and no is not a
Yeah. So the question was about Amendment 3. Have they got the wording finalized? There was another lawsuit, actually a couple, about what the wording would be. Initially, it was very deceptive. Jay Ashcroft wrote it. Attorney General Andrew Bailey defended it. And that went up, actually, that has now been set. And then they did it again a second time. It has been rewritten now by judges because we can't trust our officials who are supposed to do their jobs to actually do them. So the language has been set now. It won't be one of those confusing vote no. You want to vote yes on Amendment 3 if you want to end all of the extreme stuff that we're having in Missouri. What it will not do, just so you know, from a functional standpoint, it won't immediately overturn any laws. It will now set a new standard by which all the laws are graded, a new standard of review. And that standard says that you have freedom in Missouri. The government needs to work really, really hard to show why you shouldn't have it. So the cards are now stacked away from having bigger government interfering in your family. And so if you support small government, you should support Amendment 3. But yeah, Amendment 3, after Amendment 3 passes and goes into the state constitution, a lot of laws will then be challenged under our state constitution as being invalid. And there will be a lot of legal fights after that. There will be a lot of legal fights after that. And the last person that we want defending our new constitutional rights is Andrew Bailey. We have got to get rid of Andrew Bailey. We have to do it. That will come back to the Attorney General's office. Yeah. Yes? The question was about a gambling amendment and money going to education. I'm actually looking a little bit deeper into that right now. That's Amendment 2. Amendment 2 is about online gambling, not to be confused with another gambling one, which is they're trying to put a new casino over in the middle of the state, so that we'll have a couple of those. But Amendment 2 is one of those, if you heard this story before, stop me, where we're going to legalize some form of gambling and then money is going to go into education. There is a debate about whether that is going to happen. Last time we did that, don't know if you remember, it was the lottery. The lottery is supposed to bring in a whole bunch of money to our education budget. And so it did. And what did they do? They cut the education budget by the exact same amount. So we probably have some similar issues there. I'll probably do another little video posting the stuff about that when I get a little bit deeper into that. But right now, there is an attack on Amendment 2 from those who oppose it, saying that, no, this is not going to guarantee funds for education for the same reason. So, yeah, I mean, that function is tough because if you were to do that, you're essentially saying you're taking power away from the legislature that they have under the Constitution. And while some of our folks in government don't believe in the separation of powers, the courts still do for now, so they would still have to follow that. So there's a question about whether that money would actually go towards education or not. Yeah. Yes? Staffing at the Attorney General's office, and there is a big staffing problem at the Attorney General's office. When I worked there, we had about 200 Assistant Attorneys General working for you all over the state. 200 of them. On my first day as Attorney General, I got sworn in. I didn't even go to Jeff City to get sworn in. They took me to a judge across the street, and I got sworn in. They brought me back. I got a cupcake with a candle in it. I still don't know why I had a candle. I don't know. I don't know whose birthday it was. It wasn't mine. And you know, everybody's happy. And then my office, which didn't have a window or a ceiling, they then start giving me a bunch of files, and they keep coming in. And I said, what are those? And they said, those are your cases. I said, wow, it looks like a lot. And they said, no, this isn't even part of it. You have 1,300 cases. Welcome to the state of Missouri. And I said, wow, okay, well, great. That was when we had 200 people working there. There are about 100 people working there now. And the question isn't, oh, well, is it a budget issue? They just cut the budget. No. Governor Parson has actually said, I want you to have more money because I would like you to do your job. If that's the problem, pay them more money and do it. Nobody wants to work for this Attorney General. They don't, for a couple of reasons. One is he files really stupid lawsuits. He's expanded a division of the office, so instead of us, you know, stopping scam calls or testing rape kits, which we don't really do anymore either in Missouri, apparently. Don't ask me. This guy is now spending all of our money on the Solicitor General's office, which is the one that's filing all these crazy lawsuits, like the one against the state of New York, that even the Supreme Court said this is the most ridiculous lawsuit we ever see. Goodbye. See you later. I mean, even they were laughing at this thing. So now this division, which is sucking up all of this money, is doing that, and nobody wants to work there. There was a guy who was working there. I'm not sure he's still with the office. But in Jackson County, I don't know if you all have seen this property tax issue they had there. So the property taxes were reassessed. And, you know, after COVID, everything else, a lot of these things were going up, probably here too, all over the state. In Jackson County, though, the way that these things were assessed, it sure didn't look like they were looking at each individual property. It looked more like they were categorizing and just had like 4 or 5 different set numbers, and everybody was getting those. So people were pissed. And those who were poorer were actually seeing a higher percentage increase on all of their property taxes. So they said, well, we're challenging this, big, you know, everything else. The Attorney General ends up filing a lawsuit, which I agreed with. I think, look, you're going to protect the people of Missouri. That's a good lawsuit to file. One of the few things I've agreed with this guy on. It goes to trial. And during the trial, somebody said, well, wait, the Attorney General violated the ethics rules in Missouri. After he sued Jackson County, one of the big ethics rules here in Missouri, and for all of us lawyers, is if there's somebody on the other side of a case, and they have a lawyer, you don't get to talk to that person anymore. You can talk to their lawyer, you don't get to talk to them for a bunch of reasons. Like if they tell you something and now you know something about them, you can trick them into saying things. You talk to their lawyer. Well, instead of doing that, Andrew Bailey wanted to talk to their client, one of these people who's an elected in their local government in Jackson County. And that's not allowed, so their lawyers objected. And they had one of the assistant attorneys general working on that case was on a Zoom call with this same guy, talking to somebody on the other side when he wasn't supposed to. So they brought that in, they had all this evidence, they had a transcript and everything else, and that poor kid who was working that office gets sanctioned by the court. The Attorney General threw him under the bus, said it was his fault. Jackson County said, well, Attorney General Bailey was doing the same thing. So the judge said, you know what, you're right. We're going to have him sit for a sworn deposition. He's going to have to testify. Let's investigate. Attorney General said, no, not me. I don't take depositions. So he appealed, and the Court of Appeals said, well, yes, you sure do. You're taking a deposition. So it's the night of, I think it's a Wednesday night. The next morning, he's supposed to have his deposition taken. They're in the middle of a trial. And he says that night, he said, well, you know what, Judge, I'd like to dismiss the whole case. And the judge said, okay, I'm dismissing it with prejudice, which means you can't bring it again. So because this guy violated the ethics rules and didn't want to be sanctioned by the court, and he didn't want to answer questions under oath, he dismissed an entire case and threw everybody every property owner in Jackson County under the bus because this guy violated our ethics rules and didn't want to be held accountable for it. So not many people want to work there anymore. There's money to do it. A lot of folks ask, well, can you do all these things you're saying? Oh, isn't this going to cost a lot of money? When you sue scammers and you bring money back to the state, that's bringing money back to Missouri. When you go after people who are poisoning our water and they're being fined and they're being stopped, that's bringing money back to the state of Missouri. When you're going after these huge pharmaceutical companies, these big everything, and you're enforcing antitrust law and you're stopping them from price gouging Missourians when they have captured markets, you are bringing money back to Missouri. I am the biggest tax cut on the ballot this year. We'll bring a whole bunch of money back to Missouri. It's ridiculous. I mean, you can get that office running overnight. You can restructure it. Chris Koster structured it a little bit differently than Jay Nixon did. Josh Hawley immediately overnight didn't know what he was doing, so he just blew up the whole office. Eric Schmidt, actually for a little bit, he did okay until he wanted to run for Senate. So you can make changes very, very rapidly there, and I know a lot of folks would love to come back and serve the people of Missouri again if we had somebody that they could trust as our Attorney General. Yeah. Got me fired up. That was a good question. Oh, yeah, please.
This isn't exactly a question, but were you involved with the Sunshine Law case in the little town over by Rolla?
No, okay.
About that?
Yeah, so there was the one that was just in the news about all the money they have to pay.
The woman.
Yes. Yeah. So the question was about the Sunshine Law case. There's a town. So this woman sued, and they were actually banning her from coming into City Hall, stopping her from accessing everything because she was asking questions about how they were spending their money. And she was right. They were misallocating their funds. Audits, everything else had to be done over there. This lady was 100% right. I've had the opportunity to meet her. She's very, very nice. Actually, that was a case. She was represented by Dave Rowland, who, friend of mine, libertarian guy. Hey, Dave, if you're watching right now, I'd love for you to come to the office once we win this thing. But he runs the Freedom Center in Missouri. So it's a libertarian group, does a lot of great work on the Sunshine Law, and he does a lot of great work on that. So that town, as a result of what they did, they now owe her money. Right? When you violate the Sunshine Law, not only are you holding people away from their government, you're stopping them from accessing our basic rights here in Missouri, but now we're going to have to all pay for it. So that town now, they have to issue a vote, they have to put it on their ballot, a special tax to pay the legal fees that they owe to her and her attorney because they lost the case. Now, if they don't make it, right, then they're going to be spending whatever money they have left over other than essential services have to go to this woman now because they violated the law. Josh Hawley violated the Sunshine Law, and he had to pay. Well, he didn't have to pay anything. he made us pay $250,000 for violating the Sunshine Law. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you want people in your government who aren't violating it. One, because they believe you should have a voice in your government, but two, they don't want to waste your money. So, the Attorney General's office is the one that's supposed to enforce Missouri's Sunshine Law. They do not. And in fact, you don't even have to take my word for it. They've said it themselves. They've said, no, we're not going to enforce it against the state because sometimes we represent them. It's your job. Just do your job. Just do your job. Yeah.
What
Yes.
about this school voucher thing?
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do about that?
Yeah, so the question about school vouchers and
We
what the
all know
Attorney
what it
General
is.
can do. Yeah, well, right now we're seeing, and this happened in every single state where they passed this darn thing.
Yeah.
School vouchers are a sham, okay? What they do is they give a certain value, right, like a coupon that you get to go take to another school. If you look, and the Missouri Budget Project is a great resource if you don't know about it. Missouri Budget Project, go take a look at it. But the Missouri Budget Project put out a whole report on these things. They give, on average, something around like $6,000. You go take this to a school, and they are charging, on average, more than that. So if you don't have money, right? I don't have another $2,000 to spend on top of the $6,000 they're giving me. So if you don't have that money for your kid, you don't get to use a voucher. The people who get to use the vouchers are people who have money to spend. So vouchers are helping the wealthy people who would like to have this money and go to whatever, fancy school they want to send their kids to. So that's where that money is going. But the problem is, when they're doing that, they're taking money out of the public school system at the same time, which means that those poor kids who couldn't use the voucher in the first place are now getting bigger classroom sizes, less teachers, 4 days of school, all of these things, right? But here's the big problem with all of these things too. The cost is not immediately apparent when you pass these things. And if you look at Oklahoma, they will bring them up again. Great example. Oklahoma initially thought, oh, this was going to cost, a few $100,000, million, whatever it is. Hundreds of millions of dollars now. Because the money just starts flowing out of the system at a very, very rapid pace. So we actually are seeing that now in Missouri. They just asked for an emergency budgeting process because we don't have enough money for our public schools by $100 million. Yeah. So what the Attorney General can do, I think there's a few things even beyond. One, a civil rights division should make sure that every single child in this state has access to great quality education. That's a basic right, okay? We have that in our state constitution that each kid gets an adequate education, right? That's something that we can then litigate from the Attorney General's office. But two, I think that the Attorney General needs to do more than just, suing. Obviously, you can tell. I think we should be suing a lot of people, right? But two, we need to do advocacy on behalf of the people of the state of Missouri. And that means holding town halls across the state. And when you have somebody who's a state representative proposing something really, really stupid that's going to cost people a whole lot of money and might even be unconstitutional, because we do that too, unconstitutional bills that we're trying to pass all the time, I think the Attorney General should come, set up a town hall, invite everybody to come, invite the state representative to come, have a debate about the issues, and let folks know what the real facts are so that people can make more informed decisions about their government. I think one of the biggest roles that the Attorney General should play is in educating Missourians about how our local government, how our state government is working, and asking them to have input into our government. And I think if we have someone who has that approach in that office, that will transform our state government so it better serves the people of Missouri the way that it was supposed to be. So that's what I think. I think on this issue, that's a very big one. Anything else? This question about workers' compensation is very important. In Missouri, our workers' compensation system is not good. Okay, I represent folks, right? I represent workers who have been injured on the job right now, and sometimes I make this joke with them because I'm in St. Louis. It's like, too bad you didn't get injured in Illinois, because you would get better benefits there. When I was at the Attorney General's office, those 1,300 cases, they were workers' compensation cases. So I did that for quite some time. And it is an unfair system. Right now, the cards are stacked against, the whole deck is stacked against workers in Missouri in the workers' compensation system. Even if you win, right, which you have to go through because that's part of the deal with working here in Missouri, even if you go, your injuries are valued less because you happen to be in Missouri when that happened, right? And we've eliminated some of the benefits that you used to be able to get here in Missouri. We had a second injury fund. I mean, it's kind of like some detailed stuff, but they took some of those benefits when I was there. If you were injured, and that wasn't too long ago, when I was there, if you were injured, you could get extra benefits that you can no longer get today. Why? Because the legislature changed the law, and they made it harder for workers to get benefits for being injured at work, and they made it easier for employers to get away with letting you get injured at work. So that's the system that we have today, because the legislature controls laws and what laws are made, and those laws are what sets up our workers' compensation system. So we have folks who are running for the state legislature. We need new people in our state legislature. We should get them. Ashley's great. You should vote for her. Please do that, because we need to change those laws. Now, when we talked, right, well, if they're not going to change the laws. They're not going to do it. I mean, you can get some folks, and some of them, I mean, going through union organizing, this is so important. It's such an important issue, especially for first responders, because they're dealing with this all the time. I talk about this all the time. And if you have an attorney general who's going to oppose you every step of the way, that makes it way harder, especially if you are working for the state or you're working for a government, and the attorney general is supposed to be the one who's helping you but also opposing you at the same time. So that's a problem. The initiative petition is under attack in Missouri, but they haven't changed the laws yet. They have proposed changes to the laws to make it harder for folks to access the initiative, saying, oh, you need more votes here, or you need votes from this part of the state and that part of the... They haven't done it yet. They failed because we had folks in our state Senate who filibustered for a very, very long time. Very, very long time. Record amounts of time. They stood up and they did. And here in Missouri, unlike in D.C., you got to stand up and talk the whole time. They should go do that in D.C. too. That's the rule they should be applying. But the initiative petition, I believe, we should use in order to revamp our workers' compensation system to make sure that workers are getting a better end of the deal. But yeah, I think right now, I would say that is how we should go about doing it. But you're right, there will be an attack on the initiative petition. There's going to be an attack on our court system and how we're appointing judges. They're going to want all of the judges at the Supreme Court to be elected so that they can elect all Republicans, so that they side with them, and the Democrats are going to want all Democrats, instead of selecting the way that we have now, which is a nonpartisan method of selecting, even though the governor is selecting most of these people on there already. I mean, I don't know what they're complaining about. So there's going to be a lot of attacks on these basic systems to try to rig the system in their favor. But I would humbly suggest we use the initiative petition in order to revamp the workers' compensation system. But I will say, from the Attorney General's office, there are many attorneys general around the country who also work with prosecutors around the country to go after wage theft. So wage theft can be you're misclassifying a worker, you're not paying them for the full amount that they've worked, you're not paying them for overtime when they're supposed to get it, whole bunch of things. Prevailing wage, you're not paying that. The Attorney General's office can enforce those laws right now. So we can, from the Attorney General, we can have really, really great progress in terms of protecting workers on the job, and I will certainly be a pro-worker Attorney General. That was a good question, though. Yeah, they are certain. I mean, this next session, if you thought that they were done going after the initiative and everything else, they certainly are not. And I think the next thing will be they're going to go after the Missouri nonpartisan court plan, because I think they're already setting themselves up for that right now. Yeah. All right, you got it. Last one. Got to be good. It's going to be the last one. No pressure. Yeah, no, it's a great question. So for those who couldn't hear, the question was about there's a man right now. He's on death row. He's scheduled to be executed in just a few days here in September. His name is Marcellus Williams. And the question was about, when the Attorney General protecting our ability to make decisions, and here protecting the jury's decision in this case, even in the cases where different evidence comes up one way or another, saying maybe we got this one wrong. Marcellus Williams' case is a particular one because he's on death row, right? Before him, right before, we had a couple of other folks who had spent decades in prison for crimes that they did not commit. Christopher Dunn was one. He spent over 30 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Sandra Hemme was another who spent over 40 years for a crime that she did not commit. And in her case, it sure seems like all of the evidence points to a police officer that framed her because she had some issues. She had some issues understanding what was happening to her. She was answering questions however they wanted her to do it. and they put her away because the police officer had the murder victim's credit card and money. And she spent 43 years in prison. Christopher Dunn was there for 34 years. And 4 years ago, a judge said, this guy shouldn't be here, but I don't have the power to release him because Missouri's laws are so stupid, I could only release him if he was on death row. We made national news for how stupid our laws were. And you wouldn't believe it. The legislature actually did the right thing. They changed the law. They said that prosecutors can now come forward and say, we're going to prove actual innocence. We're going to prove with clear and convincing evidence, a very, very high standard, that this person shouldn't be there. So they did with Christopher Dunn. The Attorney General came in and opposed it over and over again. Judge said he should be released. Attorney General Andrew Bailey called the warden for the prison and said, do not release this person. And it had to go all the way. I know, it's a sad story. I agree. It had to go all the way. I mean, you're going up to the Supreme Court. They said the Attorney General can't just stop these because he feels like it. So release this man. They sent him over to St. Louis for processing, as long as the prosecutor said, I don't want to do it, which is a weird rule because the prosecutor is the one who said he should be released in the first place. And he was released. And the first question they asked him was, what do you have to say to our Attorney General? And he said, have a good life. After spending 34 years in there with this guy fighting him every step of the way. Marcellus Williams is a little bit different for this reason. There was a prosecutor, same law. Prosecutor says, hey, we should release this guy. He's not supposed to be there. DNA evidence indicates he's not supposed to be there. So in comes Andrew Bailey to say, no. Not only did he said the execution date, he said that the hearing, which was in August, the hearing date should be a little bit later. He wanted to move the hearing date to after his September execution date. So he would be dead before anybody hears the new DNA evidence. So that didn't happen. The judges were like, that's nuts. We're not going to do that. So let's have a hearing. When they came to the hearing, it started really early in the morning, and they had to take a big pause for several hours. And the judge came out, and he said, look, they're dealing with some really tough issues right now, so please give us some time. They come out, and they said, okay, Marcellus Williams has agreed to a new deal with the prosecutors. The prosecutors are admitting that they have screwed up the DNA evidence against him. So the DNA report came back and said his prints aren't on there. There's no DNA evidence from him. The problem was there was DNA evidence from one of the investigators, which means that somebody opened up the bag and touched it. So now there was a possibility that his DNA evidence isn't on there because somebody wiped it off by accident. So the state is now admitting we have screwed up the evidence, and now we would like to make a deal with this guy and say instead of him being executed, he will agree. And can you imagine like being that guy who's like, I think I'm getting out in a few days, to saying I will agree. It was an Alford plea, so he's not pleading guilty. He's just saying I agree that I don't have enough evidence to support what I'm saying right now. He said I will be there life in prison. Okay? So right? So Andrew Bailey says, no, I don't agree with that. We need to execute this man. And goes and he appeals the thing, and they say, all right, well, judge, you have to hold a hearing on this. So the judge holds a hearing. And there's nothing that the judge can do. The judge is looking at this report, and you've got to have clear and convincing evidence of actual innocence. And now the state is saying, well, we did a really bad job with the evidence, so now too bad for that guy. So the judge said, I don't have any authority to do anything now. He has to be executed. The one person who can stop it is Governor Parson. And there's some if you know what happened, you don't know what happened, whatever it is, I don't think that there's much of a question here that we shouldn't be executing this guy. You can commute that sentence to life in prison. You give him more time to figure out whatever he's doing. It's not like he's going to be going anywhere anyway. But that's the situation it is right now. And if Governor Parson doesn't do anything in a few days, there's a possibility, and we will never know, because you cannot bring somebody back from death. You can release them from prison. You can't bring them back out of the grave. And that's the situation that our state is facing right now in just the next week and a half. So it's all on Mike Parson right now to do it. I oppose the death penalty. I will be the first Attorney General since Jack Danforth to oppose the death penalty. I think it's, look, for this very reason, we know in the United States we have executed people who are innocent. We know that. We know it. We've made mistakes before. I think that humans are fallible. I think we make mistakes all the time. And so I don't think we should be executing folks because that is the worst mistake that you can make within the justice system. You can't bring that person back. You can't do it. So I oppose it. From an economic standpoint, for those who are like, I'm on the fence, I don't know, it costs a lot more money to have the death penalty. And here in Missouri, there was a whole report about how we were getting our death penalty drugs, and that was off the books, cash payments, behind pharmacies, a lot of questions about what in the world were we doing just so that we could keep killing people within our system. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right. It's wasting a lot of taxpayer money. It's not deterring life in prison versus being executed, not really deterring anyone either. So I don't think it's fitting any of the functions that it would work within our way of thinking about it. But I think it's wrong. I don't think we should be doing it. Yeah. Well, that was a good last question, I think. Yeah, thanks. Well, I really, look, thank you all for hosting again. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the Trippies, too. You helped do all this stuff, too, so thank you. It means some candidates next week. We're going to attempt to live stream this whole thing. And even if we don't, we'll record and get it out there. Unfortunately, it will be the 6th event that Attorney General Andrew Bailey has not responded to whether he's going or not. It's scary that he's afraid to answer questions and talk to folks about what his ideas for Missouri are. So we'll keep putting pressure on him to do it. But I really, your support means a whole lot. We're building something really, really cool here in Missouri, and a lot of the other candidates who are running out there are doing the same thing. So this is our home. This is our state. And it's up to us to make sure it's working for us. So thank you all for being a part of that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. There's more food, so you should eat it, right? Yeah?